Hello and welcome. We will get started in just a moment. Hello and welcome to this session of Alt Legal Connect. We are in putting the buzz back in blogging, new tips for a mature medium. As you should know by now, surely, I am Bree Van Til. I am the Director of Education here at Alt Legal. I'm the Master of Ceremonies for Alt Legal Connect, and I'm here to make sure you have a great time. So if you have any feedback for us, please put that in the feedback form or send it to me. Just let me know. I want to know what's going on. As a reminder, don't be a jerk. You've seen this a dozen times, but I still want to remind you just in case. I do want to make sure that you know that we are not offering CLE credit for this session. However, we will provide a uniform certificate of attendance for those who qualify. The qualifications are exactly the same as for CLE credit, which is to say, first of all, you must attend this session live. If you're not attending live, you're still going to learn a ton, but I'm not able to provide you with even a uniform certificate of attendance for that. I also need you to be here the entire time. The session will be about 70 minutes long. When I come in to say the code, make sure to write that down and put it in the survey that we'll put in the chat at the end. If you miss any survey links, I send those out at the end of the evening as well. All right, make sure to submit it with that. Again, Alt Legal, still not a law firm. We're still a legal technology company, so nothing we're saying here is legal advice. And Carolyn's views are, I'm sure, really great views, but they're not necessarily the views of Alt Legal. Please feel free to use the chat. Again, you've been using it all day and have been doing beautifully with it. If you have any questions for Carolyn, make sure that you put question in front of that, and we will get those questions over to her. So I'm really pleased to welcome our speaker today, Carolyn Elefant, who is just a celebrity in her own right here in the legal world. She's the founder of the Offices of Carolyn Elefant, a business law firm focusing on energy law. Again, she's best known probably in this community for her work on Myshinglecom, which is the first blog dedicated to helping small law firms succeed. She started the blog almost 2 decades ago and has been a pioneer and a leader in the blogging space ever since. So here's Carolyn. There you go.
Okay, I'm on. Okay, great. All right, so hi everybody and welcome to the presentation on putting the buzz back in blogging, news tips for mature medium. You know that you've been around for a long time when you are referred to, or your medium is referred to as mature. I guess that's just kind of the euphemistic word for old, for grandparent. But I am really excited to be able to give this presentation. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of focus on blogging, even though it's been around for a long time, and it's something that many lawyers read, many lawyers participate in. And so it was really good for me to have this opportunity in preparing for this presentation to kind of look around and really reflect and think about how blogging has changed, what is the same about it and what's different, and what some of the benefits are that remain, and maybe what other mediums have replaced it for other purposes. So I don't know if I can ask questions here. I can try. I just wanted to get a sense of who is in the audience. Do we have anybody here who either is a blogger or who is a big blogger? So, okay, so I can't ask questions, so I'm going to move on and get started. And this is a presentation that's going to address all of the different levels anyway. So anyway, my first slide is sort of where it started and where we are now. So and how it's going. So on the left is the first page of Myshinglecom. It's still out there in the internets. It's available on archive.org. When I started the blog, I started it on a home server because at that time, blogging was something that was a little bit more complicated than it is now. I mean, now it's sort of the standard part of any website, but back then it was a little bit different. And so fortunately, some of my earlier pages were archived. That was how the site looked back then. When I started it, there were probably 8 or 9 people a day who read the site. And it probably took, I don't know, 9 or 10 months of just straight writing to start to generate some interest and some kind of audience. I know you can't see the post really closely, but you can see that some of the posts were actually very short. I mean, that was sort of like the full post. It wasn't even a continue. And that's because back then, this was before Facebook and before Twitter and before Instagram, and before a lot of these other types of microsites where you might be able to communicate things more concisely. And so on the right hand side is how the blog is today. I've been blogging for, it will be, gosh, it's going to be 19 years in December of 2020. And essentially my blog has covered really everything related to solo and small law firm practice. So it's focused on the nuts and bolts of starting a firm. It's focused on profiles of attorneys who started their own firms and why they started, challenges they faced. It's focused on issues that are important to solo and small firms for success. And so as there's been transitions to deregulation of law, I've always posted about those issues from the side or the perspective of a solo or small firm lawyer. Now, in my practice, I have also, from time to time blogged. I also do newsletters in my practice, which is kind of a sibling of blogging. There's a lot that's very similar about the medium. And so I have experience in what it's like to blog in a professional manner for a law firm. But I share this blog here just to give an example because this is the one that I've done the most consistently over time. And it's really given me a chance to see how blogging has evolved throughout the generations of attorneys. And so we'll talk about that a little bit as background and then get into where things are now, how things are changing, and how blogs are still relevant. Because that's going to be the end of it. I mean, I would still be blogging if it weren't relevant. So this is kind of what I consider to be a quick history of legal blogging. This is a little bit different from blogs in the tech space because at that time there were bloggers who were, blogging about either lifestyle or technology. They're always a little bit more advanced than lawyers, but there's sort of what I consider to be the early days, which for me was kind of the initial renaissance of blogging. It may have even preceded 2000. I think some of the earliest blogs, according to Bob Ambrosi's Law Blogs or Law Sites blog, may have gone back to like 1998 or 1999. And back then, sort of the early days were characterized by a very tight-knit community. There was a lot of discourse. People would post in comments because, again, this was before social media. And so blogs were really the first opportunity that attorneys had to self-publish and also to interact with each other and to interact outside of communities. I mean, at that time, people were on listservs. I mean, if you were lucky enough to have a listserv, because a lot of bar associations didn't even have them. And so I really felt that it was a renaissance in terms of interaction in the legal community because it was really the first time that people had to interact. I remember when I started my shingle, even though it wasn't devoted to something like the Supreme Court or appellate law like the Howard Bashman blog or to a trademark niche or some legal topic, it still really gave me an opportunity to interact with academics and with large firm attorneys who were blogging. And so I felt that there was a very democratic tool that gave me access to other people in the legal community to network with and make connections with. So in the early days of blogging, and this may be maybe a little bit past 2004, that's also where we saw the rise of blogs that are kind of famous or law internet famous. And probably the most famous one is David Lattin Above the Law, which started out as a blog called Underneath Their Robes, which kind of had these contests about judicial hotties. And, he would do, he would have, like who's the best looking judge or who's the best looking male or female judge. And it was very gossipy, but it was also very intelligent. And he wrote about cases in an intelligent way, but he also had this sort of salacious part of it. And that he was eventually outed for writing that, and eventually morphed into Above the Law, which I guess I've always thought of Above the Law more as a news publication. Many consider Above the Law to be a blog, and that's kind of an overlap between, what's a blog and what's a news publication. So that's something that there seems to be a little bit of disagreement over in, what constitutes what. So from that period of time, and at that time, people weren't making money off blogs. I mean, maybe somebody would have like a little donation button on the side asking for, a few pennies to support the blog. But other than that, blogging really wasn't something lawyers looked at for any type of commercial purpose. It was really like a town square, being part of a bar association. Well, even bar association you join not just for collegiality, but to market your practice. But it was really, it's hard to explain what the vibe was like, because it was really almost anti-commercial. Nobody was looking for business from their blogs. People would write on their blog, I don't make any money from this, or this doesn't get me anything, if I recommend somebody or something like that. So, but, eventually lawyers being business people, being entrepreneurial, began to see that there are also benefits for blogging for business purposes. And so between around 2005 and 2012, lawyers started to adopt blogging for marketing. And so what I mean by that is large firms began writing blogs, which was a way to show what they knew to their clients and to sort of make their websites a little bit more interactive than just kind of a big brochure online. What was really exciting for me during that period was seeing what solos and small firms were doing, because there were a lot of solo and small, it was a wide open space then. And there were solo and small firm lawyers who were doing probate law or who were doing family law, who just started writing posts every, few times a week. And it really catapulted them to the top of the search engines. And this was free SEO juice. And so there were a number of firms that really had breakout success just from writing these posts. And again, back then it was lawyers who were doing the content themselves. They weren't necessarily writing to capture a keyword. They were really just writing informative posts to kind of bring client to elevate their visibility online, and also to educate clients to learn more about their services, so that when clients would come to them, they were already pre-qualified. If they already knew, what the factors would be if they wanted to get a divorce. If they had a personal injury case, they were already able to figure out what kind of things you should do, what you should tell the insurance company, what kind of documents you should keep, what kind of photos you should have. So people were already somewhat educated, and so it made them better clients too. And so blogging was also helping to improve conversion at these sites, as we started to see people looking for lawyers on the internet. So from that period, and I guess again, whether it's like till 2012, 2013 maybe, I feel like blogging morphed from being sort of a bootleg or a guerrilla marketing practice that lawyers were able to use to something that was really professionalized. So I guess really kind of the only analogy I can use to describe what I mean by that change is, you think of a lawyer just kind of marketing their firm through networking and through, giving out brochures or business cards at meetings, to moving from that to like professional billboards and the yellow pages. Like billboards and yellow pages are definitely like professional. You may not think the content is professional, but that's what I think of when I think of professionalized marketing. People who are doing these, larger campaigns like that, putting ads in newspapers or, in the pamphlets that you open up on the planes, on airplanes. And so I feel like, starting around 2013, blogging started to take on that professionalized character. And so what we started to see during this period is firms hiring bloggers to generate content. And some firms would do it with the intention of educating clients, but for some, it was really just a pure SEO play. And blogging was viewed as a tool for SEO, and I felt like during this period, blogging lost a lot of its personality, because what made blogs so unique, such a unique format to me, and what I think made them compelling to the public, was that there was a personal voice. You could tell, the lawyer who was the curmudgeon. You could tell the ambitious young startup, Black attorney who was marketing for young clients, or the upstart, attorney dedicated to free speech, writing about free speech posts in their blog. You really got a sense of the lawyer behind the blog. And I feel like as blogs became more professionalized, it was a step removed. And it's not to say the posts aren't still well written and professional. Many of them are, and many of them are still very useful to the public, because it's still an abundance of information that might not otherwise be available. But I felt like during that period, I feel like blogging lost a little bit of its potential. I also feel like from a referral perspective, because as an attorney, I'm frequently asked by friends and colleagues to recommend other attorneys. And because I don't know attorneys in every practice area, I do what other members of the public do, which is go online and search for attorneys who may have the expertise that I'm looking for. And I often go to their blogs and I just come away so disappointed, because they're so half-hearted, and you can tell that they were just written for SEO. It's sort of like, if you have a divorce problem, call a family law attorney. And if your husband is beating you, call a family law attorney. And the content is not very useful, and it's somewhat disappointing. And so that kind of brings us to the present, where, 2018 is blogging on the decline. I mean, honestly, this is probably, at this conference, this is probably one of the first panels I've been on blogging in maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So don't think that the conference is inviting stale content. I promise you, I'll make this very relevant. But it's just that it doesn't have the force or the shine that it once did. I think part of that is because, as I said, it's being not displaced. Some would say displaced, some would say supplemented, but the fact of the matter is there's more kids on the block now. So blogging isn't the only game in town for being interactive. And in fact, as you see, most blogs have actually removed their comment section. It's very unusual to even find any kind of blog that has comments. And part of that is because a lot of the conversation has moved to places like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, where people share information. There's also, technology has improved. And so today, just as, at one time it was difficult to just automatically post content, now doing things like podcasting, sharing audio and video is much easier too. We have sites, we have podcasts, we have sites like Clubhouse that are audio communities only, tons of video on TikTok, on YouTube. And so those are also ways of communicating the same information in different formats that blogs once conveyed. And so there's just more players in that self-publishing, information disseminating space. And then even within the written space, there's still, again, like I said, when I started my blog, I was uploading files on a server by file transfer protocol. It was that complicated. Now there's a million resources for self-publishing content online. There's LinkedIn, Substack, which is an email newsletter, but you can also link to the content online. Sites like Medium. There's just so many ways to get the word out there. And so it raises the question, in an era of short attention spans and new media, is blogging something that is relevant? Is relevant now. And I see that we're getting some interesting discussion, and I really appreciate that, because I asked this question on Twitter to my old blogging buddies to see, what their views were, and it generated some interesting dialogue. And I think the general consensus there was not so much whether blogging is relevant or on the decline, but that as a medium, it has evolved, and that is to be expected. I mean, the internet has evolved since the Communications Decency Act was passed. Blogging has been around for almost 20 years, and it's always been a very dynamic type of medium, and so it is evolving too. And, you know, I mean, you look at regular paper journalism, that's kind of the lesson of what happens when you don't evolve. You become extinct. And so we're going to talk about some of these different ways to talk about how we can make blogging something that still remains relevant. But what I wanted to do first is just give a couple of statistics. I always love to give these little statistics when I give a presentation, so that you know, so that the content is a little bit more than anecdotal. I mean, I have my own very strong views about where blogs are or what the importance of them are, but these are just some of the statistics that would suggest that, you know, even though blogging is, you know, again, doesn't get the headlines or the focus that other mediums do, it really is still something that's relevant. So the first statistic I found is that blogs that publish 16 posts a month get 3.5 more times traffic than those that publish less than 4 posts. I can tell you from my anecdotal experience at Myshinglecom, that's very true. Even now, I don't post anywhere nearly as regularly as I did, but when I do post, I often get traffic. And one of the reasons for that is in that particular space is there's just such a demand for content, for unique content. And so my posts get picked up by other players who disseminate the information. But 16 posts a month, obviously, especially for lawyers, is something that is really potentially in unwieldy things. So I'm not suggesting that you post 16 times a month. I'm just, you know, again, showing that, you know, when you do post more, it does increase traffic, and it doesn't have to be by that much more. This next statistic I think is very interesting and very important. 60%, 6 out of 10 buyers report that blog posts influence their purchase, and they have the most impact at the start of the decisional process. So that confirms what I said before, what I will be saying later on, is that blogs really, I think one of the roles that they play that is still very important is that they help to educate clients. They help to make them aware that they do have a legal problem, and to inform them of what it might be. So they're not necessarily the kind of thing that's going to make a client do an impulse purchase, but they help to educate them and kind of soften them up, so that when there comes a time that they do have a need to get that trademark or get that copyright or that patent, they will come to you because you've kind of put out the breadcrumbs with your blog post by, you know, showing the pitfalls of what happens when you don't have a copyright or a trademark, or the benefits of, you know, being able to sell your business because you had a name that was trademarked, and being able to make more money, you know, selling your business than if you hadn't trademarked your name, those kinds of things. So blogs, I think, still really serve that purpose very strongly, and we're going to talk about how you can create content that will be that educational content that will also have sort of long-standing vitality online. Content marketers still rate blogs very high. 92% of content marketers employ them as part of a marketing strategy. So if you're looking at blogs as a way to generate business, the most important, you know, one of the most important sources for advice on business is from marketers. And of course, blogs are an incredible source of content because they're so versatile. You can, you know, as we'll discuss also, you can create one source of content and then do a million different things with it. You can repurpose it, and you can recirculate it. And so it's a very versatile medium in terms of content, I think. The one thing that I also found very interesting is that the average number of words in a blog post have gone up. Blogging used to be much more short form, and especially, you know, with these posts that were focused solely on keywords. I mean, how many times can you say, you know, if you have a trademark problem, call a lawyer? So the average number of posts, of blog posts, or the the length now is about 1,500 to 2,000 words. I think that also has to do with different search engine techniques, the way the search engines evaluate sites, and they tend to evaluate, they want to direct consumers to the most valuable source of business. And I think that, a search engine believes that sort of a longer post is something that, is going to be more content rich and more important, or is going to fare better on a search engine than a shorter post. Again, 1,500 to 2,000 words is a very long post. I'm not suggesting that you post that long, but we're going to talk about the benefits of having a couple of those kinds of feature type of posts that can help to improve traffic and serve different purposes. And honestly, I can tell you it doesn't take much, at least for me, depending on the type of post, to get to 1,500 or 2,000 words. I'm just looking at these questions, and we'll go through this. So let's talk about just some of the ways, again, that blogs still remain relevant to lawyers, or how they can benefit lawyers. So the first way is more from reading from reading other blogs than necessarily from writing them. It's a great way to stay abreast of development of legal issues. I know that when I started blogging, there were a couple of well-known trademarks. Marty Schwimmer, I can't remember what the name of that trademark blog was. I used to read it. And I know that today there are a number of well-known trademark blogs that many of you probably follow. Then again, it has the educational purpose. It really is a way, many clients don't know that they have a legal problem. I think studies have shown that, sort of like 70% of consumers who have problems that are legal don't realize that they're legal problems. And so, a post is a great way to do that. I was in, for example, just relevant to trademark, I was in a group where somebody had developed an accessory for a Peloton bike, and she was advertising it as, buy this accessory to help with, to make your Peloton experience more enjoyable. And she got a letter from Peloton telling her that you shouldn't be doing that. And she really didn't even realize that she had a legal problem to begin with. I think it is, not being a trademark expert myself, I suspect this is probably potentially a big legal problem. But, posts like that, you're kind of in the middle of this space. And so that, seems like something you wouldn't think about. But think about a client who doesn't have a legal background, or even an attorney who doesn't have a background in IP. They may have these legal issues that you can inform them of through the blog. The next thing is that I think is really really highly overlooked reason for blogging is you can produce content that attracts referrals from other lawyers. As I said, I have gone online for many reasons to look at blogs. I've gone to try to find referrals for colleagues. I've gone to research questions, where I was writing a law review article or a white paper on something. And I've gone to these blogs, and they've been such a disappointment. The information is terrible. There's nothing there that tells me that the lawyer knows what they're talking about. And it just, if I came across a website that had, intelligent or insightful blog posts, I would probably, if I were making a referral, reach out to that attorney, contact them, or just send their name on, just based on what I saw online. So I think that there's really an opportunity for producing good content for to be able to attract other lawyers who may refer your work. You can also create a body of work that you yourself can use as a reference. I know that, as I said, I don't blog as much for my business, for my law firm at all. But one thing that I do is I have a newsletter, which I publish, and a blog post, which summarizes all of the appellate court cases of the agency that I practiced before. It's a very manageable agency. The most cases the court's ever done has been like 40 cases, but I've been doing that for 10 years. And so I have really easy access to like 400 cases involving this particular agency that the court has addressed. So if there's like an ongoing legal saga or a case that you're tracking, as you blog about it, it creates this body of work that you can go back to and you can reference, or that you can make available to other clients as a reference source, or that you might even be able to market or sell as a reference. And the last reason, of course, is one we've talked about before that is of interest to people. Blogging can enhance search engine visibility, and also be a hub for other marketing initiatives. So the content that you create at the blog, again, can be disseminated on LinkedIn. I think somebody is asking about, another way to connect blogging to things. I mean, it gives you something to disseminate on LinkedIn. Twitter is a great place to circulate blog posts. And when you circulate them at those sites, they can be picked up by other people. Reporters might see them, might contact you about the blog post that you did. So there's sort of all these concentric circles that you can do to repurpose and recirculate that work. So it's not just search engine visibility that is a marketing or a commercial reason behind blogging, but also these other ways of disseminating that content. And so so somebody asked a good way to connect blogging with social media, and I think some of those tools, and we'll actually talk about them, because I've got a list of sort of different action items or things, different ways that you can make your content more available. And so first one I'm going to talk about, though, is these are just some of the ideas for blogging and sort of what benefits each of them provides, because there are a million different types of blog posts. I mean, there's sort of, the post that summarizes case law. There's posts about events in the news, like anytime you see a celebrity die, you'll also often see an attorney blogging about, why, look at what happened to Prince because he didn't have a will, something like that. But I think these are kind of, there's I think there's a type of post here that can be something that would be workable for anybody. So the first type of post is what is called evergreen content. This is really the content that educates consumers. And it's basically, evergreen content is, you have a lengthy sort of multi-part post. It's usually like a how-to or guide. It's almost like an ebook, but it's in blog post format. You might have like 6 different chapters. And it's on a topic that people are always going to be looking for. So one example I can give you, if I'm promoting my competitors, of course, but a lot of law firm vendors, practice management vendors, have evergreen content on starting a law firm. So if you Google start a law firm, you'll see like sites like Clio. In my case, they have evergreen content. They've got a list of like 10 posts, the different steps of starting a law firm. Of course, I believe that my content is still superior, but it's not as findable. So, what's the point? But that's an example of this kind of evergreen content. So if you're practicing in trademark or copyright, you'd want to come up with some kind of topic that a lot of people look for. I'll get to the question at SEO at the end of the presentation, but come up with a topic that a lot of people might be looking for. And again, I saw somebody else saying that one of the challenges with trademark laws, it's really hard to distinguish yourself from what other people are doing. And so I think what you want to do there for your evergreen content is, if you have a niche in trademark, like for example, if you focus on, if you serve mom-owned businesses, or if you work with small companies on IP, you want to pick out a niche for your evergreen content. So the whole world won't be looking for that content, but the people in your universe would be looking for it. So that's what I would suggest for sort of this evergreen content post. And like I said, it can also be repurposed as an ebook. So you can put it, all together in a downloadable format, so that people who come to your website can also have that, get the information in that format. They serve kind of 2 different purposes. You can view it online. It's sort of a tool that attracts people to your site. And then you already have the content. People can download it. You add them to your mailing list. So, and you could even, the evergreen content, you could use as an email series. If you do, a drip series, have people sign up for, a 10-step email or something, you can also put the content there. But evergreen content is kind of one of the foundation, or a potential foundation of of a blog or even a website. Another kind of post that I think is really easy to do is just doing a monthly, weekly roundup of new things that are in the news. You just set up a Google like Feedly or an aggregator to track news stories you're interested in. So if you're following something like, trademark and crypto or trademark and tech companies, and then, you can just once a month just do a post that's basically just a roundup of links. And again, that kind of content you can put into a newsletter. I mean, that's the thing too, like, if you're doing a newsletter, you can turn the newsletter into a blog. I mean, people, again, consume this content in different formats, and the content that you're putting into the newsletter, you can also put out on a blog and have people come find it that way. So Roundup is a really good thing. Frequently asked questions, those are always really important to have at a website anyway, because as I said, if there are attorneys or clients who are looking to hire you, they want to see that you know what you're talking about. And so you can do a series of blog posts, how long does it take to get a trademark? How much does it cost to get to find a trademark attorney? I know that there are probably a lot of posts on this, but trust me, there's a lot of crap posts on that topic too, because I've looked around for that kind of stuff. So if you do a really good post on how to find an attorney, or how much does it cost to get a trademark, or, top 5 things you should know about trademarks, that's a little different from an FAQ, but that's, again, very easy content to put together. It's content that you could outsource. You could, hire a law student to write, or hire an attorney to write, and then kind of oversee it and kind of put it into your own voice. So that's like another sort of easy idea for content for your blog. The industry interviews, I love this one. This is the easiest way to generate content, and everybody loves it. Such a crowd pleaser. So essentially what you do is you identify people in your industry. It could be other attorneys. It could be, again, if you're representing moms who have home businesses, it could be moms running home businesses. If you're representing bloggers, it can be bloggers. Whatever your audience is, musicians, museums, and come up with a list of 10 people who you want to interview, and ask them questions about their work. And you can ask them, put in a question about trademark or copyright, or if it's something that has ever been an issue for them. You can just send them these interviews. What I usually do when I do a big chunk of interviews like this is I just put together some email questions. Sometimes I'll go through the question, interview the person, and then you can do it as a video, and then you can do it as a blog post too. But it's easy content. And the thing is like, once somebody is featured on your blog and they've got their picture and a link to their logo, it just looks really good. And then they circulate it to other people, or they post it. And so it gets the word out about your law firm. So I've got a bunch of those profiles at my Shingle. I've done like a whole big bunch of them in different format. There's just a profile link, but it's a really easy way to come up with that. I see the question about the aggregator. I'll go back to that in a second. I'll just go through the rest of these. Skyscraper content is something that I just learned about as I was researching for this presentation. So apparently it's the penultimate blog post. So essentially what you do is you do research on keywords in the area that you're interested in, and you find the posts that are ranked at the top of the search engine for those keywords. And then you just come up with a post that does it better than those posts, that just kind of outdoes what those posts do. And apparently the benefit is that you do get some monster SEO for that. It's something I haven't experimented with. I didn't really know that this was a thing, but I am going to try it. And I have seen online that there are people who even advertise doing skyscraper content. I would personally probably do it myself before I would hire anybody to do it. But again, it seemed like another way to just start getting some visibility for the blog. Another type of post I talk about is sort of behind the scenes, which is really where there's a news of something in the news and you kind of give your behind the scenes view. Again, like with the Brittany Conservancy, a lot of estate lawyers are kind of saying, hey, I don't, I can't understand why this would happen, or her lawyer must have really sucked because he didn't do anything. This is really what you should do in this situation. This is what I think should happen. So if there are any kind of trademark events or, kind of sexy events in the news that people are looking into, you just write a blog about it and give your opinion. It's a great way to, and then send your blog post to journalists and to others covering the stories. It's a good way to get into the news. And it's very educational for consumers. I think consumers really enjoy that kind of thing. And the last thing is you can just turn your blog into a transcript. I mean, if you're a podcaster or if you're doing mini videos, you can very easily get those tools, get those recordings transcribed. There's Otter AI, and there's a couple of other very easy transcription tools that you can use that are very affordable, and just take the text and just turn it into a blog post. So I see a question, somebody asking about what an aggregator is or how it works. So essentially what a news aggregator is it just sort of feeds you your news content. I use one called Feedly, which I don't know if it's part of Google now or not, but what I can do with Feedly is I can enter in topics that I'm interested in, and it'll it'll give me a list of news sites that I can follow, or blogs that I can follow. And so what it enables me to do is, instead of going to 10 different websites or 30 different websites that I'm tracking, I just go through a list of headlines. And if there's a headline that looks interesting to me or something I might want to write about, I can click on it and then I can see the text of it. And so it's a way to kind of follow along with news more efficiently. The other thing you can do is use the Google News Tracker, where you can put in terms into Google that you want to track in the news, and it'll send you, a list of different stories that come up that are associated with that. And so that's something that just makes it easier to stay on top of a vast amount of news. I know probably in trademarks, you also probably track decisions that come out from the courts, so even, when courts send out, like if you subscribe to a court and the decisions come out, that's another way of getting the information. So an aggregator, like I said, just kind of puts together, it's an easy way to track news all in one place. So I have a question here, take on the platform blogging mattering from SEO. Is it still important to have a WordPress blog? So from SEO, it's so funny. SEO is something that's always changing, and Google and search engines are changing. And, with a lot of the tech news that I listen to, they are often talking about, people becoming increasingly concerned with privacy and moving off Google to even, considering using private search engines. And so then you wonder, is the whole house of cards built on SEO going to come crumbling down if Google is no longer dominant? And then the algorithm for Google is also always changing, in terms of searching too. So for something like blogging, I am a little bit skeptical of how important blogging is for SEO. I think if you really want to, take a shortcut to SEO or to findability, you're better off focusing on something like Google My Business and building up your visibility there, getting a lot of reviews online, which is also another way to generate visibility, and then putting some new content on your site. But I think that blogging alone, 10 or 15 years ago, like I said, in those early days, you could honestly be a family law attorney in Kansas who blogged about family law every day, and you come up at the top of the search engines. And I'm not so sure that's the case anymore, unless, of course, you have a niche. And I think with niche, it can help you become more findable. And then WordPress blogs, I've been using, starting out, like I said, I was on /code, I was on TypePad, I've been on a million different places. I'm on WordPress now. I mean, and I wasn't really blown away by the tools I used in the beginning were, what WordPress just became within the past 5 years. I think WordPress is still kind of the most important one or the easiest one for search engine optimization. But again, there are other considerations. And if WordPress is something that you find a little too complicated to set up something that looks good, or you'd rather, go with something like Squarespace or, oh gosh, there's another one of those type of out of the box. I can't remember the name of it. I think again the difference, the searchability difference with WordPress versus the other ones is somewhat marginal. Like I said, I've just settled on WordPress because I know how to use it now, and it's very customizable. So and it does seem to be in sync with a lot of other programs. So I've just kind of stuck with it. But I have a colleague who uses Squarespace. He's very dependent on SEO and Google Ads to get business, and it hasn't really had any impact. So I would I wouldn't make SEO always be the driver of everything that you do online. Oh, okay. Clips, somebody made a recommendation of Scribe, adding captions to videos and downloading the transcript. Thank you. I am not familiar with that program, but that's a great idea. And then Canva. Yes, Canva is very easy for social media posts. This presentation is actually a Canva template. So Canva is very cool. And the other thing is you can go on sites like Fiverr and have, I personally would never hire somebody to write blog posts for me for Fiverr, or at least unless I was prepared to modify them. But a website like Fiverr, you can find people to do all kinds of just little hacks on your site that are, and just on a project basis. So you could have somebody set up, create Canva templates for you. If you don't, Canva, of course, the product is set up to be user friendly, but if you don't want to take the time with it, or if you get so entrenched in coming up with a template that you delay yourself, you can go to Fiverr. One of the things I'm going on Fiverr now for is my blog, having been up for 18 years, has a lot of broken links. So I'll just hire somebody to deal with all the broken links. So there's a lot of like little updating and little things that you can use on Fiverr. And, even if you don't want to hire like a professional company that does blogs and you want to, play around with the SEO on yours, there are people on Fiverr who can maybe even do some little hacks. I think, though, if you do that, it's important that you kind of understand kind of what goes on behind the blog, just so that, they can't cause any damage to it. But those are, some suggestions for, doing some of the smaller, if you want to spend time writing the blog, there are people who can do some of the smaller things that are still time consuming or that can be expensive to free you up for doing the blogging. So now we're going to talk about giving your blog some buzz or some bling. So these are really how we, take the tool of blogging and tie it in with some of these other things. So, and making the most of it. So one of the things is, again, as we've been talking about, you want to cross-post blog site on social media. I have to say, the one place where I think people are completely miss out is they don't post professional posts on their personal Facebook pages. That is a huge mistake. I've got to tell you, I have so many friends, I would have never read their stuff unless they posted about it on their personal Facebook page. So I wouldn't do it, if you're blogging 5 days a week on some complex trademark question, I wouldn't do that. But every so often, if you do an interesting blog post on a trademark issue that might be of general interest to the broader population, you should definitely post that. And especially something with trademark, because people are, things like trademark and copyright, people are always running afoul of those issues. I mean, you think of, people who are not attorneys, who are like, cutting and pasting, taking some, just taking a picture from somewhere and putting it on their website. They don't realize it's, potentially a copyright violation. I mean, so I think, posting that. Plus, a lot of times people do need, your friends may need attorneys or need to refer an attorney to somebody, and they may not even know exactly what you do. So I think that is like one of the most overlooked places is putting something on on a Facebook page. Facebook has a rule you can't post business stuff. You can't just, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, I mean, I post links to my blog. Again, I don't do it all the time, but like in a personal post, just saying just a link to a blog page. That's very interesting. I better look at that. Thank you for letting me know that. But it's interesting. I'm not even, like I said, I've had other colleagues who have done those posts. Well, you could also post it on your business Facebook page also. You should still circulate stuff on your business Facebook page. So if you have a blog, you can certainly post your business blog on your business Facebook page. There are a lot of people who do look at stuff on Facebook. If you have, there's a lot of lawyers who are starting to get on TikTok. I'm embarrassingly addicted to TikTok. I watch those videos like an hour a day, but it seems like there are some posts, especially if you're doing like a how-to or something, you could very easily break it up into a little TikTok. I mean, TikTok has a lot of visibility now. You can also link to the posts on Instagram if you've got, again, what somebody was saying with using Canva or even personal photos. You might, photos you take yourself of the area that you're in or of something. You can post on Instagram and link or use some of that content there. A blog is also a good way to capture people to your email list. You can put in just a little, when people go to your blog site, you can have a little scroll come up that says, click to subscribe to email. I feel like people click on that all the time. I've generated a huge mailing list just because people have clicked on that for my shingle. And so that's something that you can also put up on your website to capture emails. You can disseminate your blog content as newsletters. So many people do consume content by newsletter rather than through a blog. And so you can take some of the content you're generating and put it out in newsletters. And newsletters are really, I think, having a second renaissance too with, programs like Substack, which is really a way to create a very content-rich kind of I guess it's a sort of a cross between like a newsletter and sort of almost like a magazine. But people are, again, getting not just junking everything that's in their email box, because a lot of people are getting some pretty good content from that. And then you can send your blog post to other bloggers, to other lawyers, to journalists, and journalists especially. I have, I send a lot of my newsletters to journalists in my industry. And I mean, I've gotten profiled in my trade press like 3 times, like these big firms would kill for it, but just because I have such a good relationship with some of the, the bloggers from the media. Or the journalists. And then there's also a way to put blog content, in podcast video format. So think of ways that you can repurpose it. I mean, you don't want to spend a lot of time on a blog post and only use it once. So you want to think of different ways that you can kind of repurpose the content. Another thing that I didn't address here is an infographic. Everybody loves an infographic. So like if you have like top 5 mistakes that top 5 reasons to get a trademark, or some kind of listicle kind of thing, you can either create, you can do this using Canva pretty easily, create an infographic, or again, that's something that is ideal for Fiverr. You could get somebody on Fiverr to put an do the infographic for you. But infographics are very link friendly, viral friendly. People love circulating that stuff. If you come up with different statistics on it or something, I mean, everybody loves an infographic. So those are just like some of the different the different ways you can kind of make the most of your blog. So we're just going to briefly, because touch on these some of the ethics issues with blogging. And this is just one of my pet peeves about kind of the presentations on anything marketing related, is ethics is just like part of the equations. I would say that even more important than being familiar with ethics, lawyers have to have a good understanding of online compliance issues like consumer privacy laws. FTC regulations on affiliateship. As trademark attorneys, you all are probably a lot more familiar with these issues because you're either dealing with clients, you may either be doing business law, and so you have a crossover, so you're advising business clients on compliance here. But I mean, I think lawyers forget that, they're also subject to, like, CAN Spam Act or other types of privacy laws like GDPR, California compliance, California privacy law. And so those are things that you have to take into account in addition to just the ethics issues. So just talk about these things briefly. I gave out, I think there's a handout with your materials. It's like a little cheat sheet that kind of gives all of the details of this that you can refer to. This is just kind of an overview, but I just wanted to flag some of the legal ethics issues. And if you go to the handout, you can, click on actual cases where some of these issues have come up, and it's a good summary to use. The other thing with the legal ethics issues is that if you hire somebody to blog who isn't an attorney or an attorney-related company, you want to either inform them about these things, or when you check over their work, you want to make sure that there's compliance. So the first thing is client confidentiality. Some of these, obviously you don't want to blog about a live case and talk about your client without their consent. And you don't want to put clients in a case, situation where you ask them for consent to blog about something that, could potentially jeopardize their ability to be successful. So you really want to take care to guard client confidentiality. And even when you're blogging about cases, published cases that have already, are already in the public domain, I think state bars have different views on whether you would even need client consent to talk about a case like that. I personally don't think so. I don't think that's not the rule in the jurisdictions where I practice, but there may be a state that, if you've done an appeal and you want to write about it and kind of give a little behind the scenes, there may be a bar that says that you need to get your client's consent before doing that. Formation of attorney-client privilege. This probably doesn't come up as directly with blogging anymore because you don't have people posting comments. At one time, somebody might post a comment, somebody would do a post about, 3 things to know about estate planning, and somebody might post and say, I want to cut my son out of the will. What do I do? And there's a concern that a lawyer could write back and say, here's what you do. That could arguably give rise to either be considered formation of an attorney-client privilege or give rise to be considered to be the rendering of advice, and there could be malpractice consequences. That doesn't happen as much anymore. If you have concerns, you can certainly have a disclaimer at the bottom of your blog. I don't think you need it on every post, just saying information here is general in nature. Nothing is deemed to constitute attorney-client privilege. You can look at a lot of blogs and just find that kind of standard language.
Real quick, Carolyn, no, you're good. I just want to come in and just say the code real quick, and then you still have plenty of time. You're about 11 minutes left. So our code, which again is not for CLE credit, but you can get a uniform certificate of attendance just in case your state allows you to get credit for this session. The code is 2medium6. That's 2 medium, not like the size, but like, blogging is a medium, whatever. Anyway, and then the number 6. All right, please continue, Carolyn.
Okay, so we'll skip down to civility requirements, then go back to the advertising question. Just requires a little more discussion. So civility, even though the First Amendment is paramount, when you post on your blog, the kind of civility practices that apply in legal still apply. In the cheat sheet, I've given the examples of like 2 lawyers who got sanctioned because they they basically cursed at a judge in their blog or complained about these judges and kind of defamed their reputation. That doesn't doesn't work when you do it in the courtroom, and it doesn't work online either. So, you know, I don't think there's any reason to do that in a blog, you know, a professional blog where you're trying to attract clients. So those blogs, I think, were just set up for ranting purposes only, but they are real cases, and you can take a look at it, the cheat sheet. One of the sort of the bigger overarching questions about blogs, at least in the early days, is, are these advertising? I always took the position that they're not. I mean, you know, if you write an article in a newspaper, if you write a law review article, you don't write, this is, you know, disclaimer, this is considered to be attorney advertising. You're disseminating content and information. But over time, bar associations have taken different positions on this. I think like California has these really complicated rules on whether you figure out if something's advertising, if the blog is kind of a standalone blog by itself, only focused on content and doesn't have any call outs like call us, call 1-800-trademark, come to our firm, then it's not advertising. But if it's part of a website that invites people to contact your firm and submit information, then it might be advertising. Other places are more straightforward. I think Florida has always considered blogs to be advertising. The relevance of advertising is, you know, once you consider a medium to be advertising, all of the relevant rules of your jurisdiction kick in. And so, you know, you may have to, depending on what jurisdiction you're located in, you may have to designate the medium as attorney advertising. You may have to submit it for advanced review to a disciplinary committee or the bar. You might have to post a street address or a phone number. I mean, every single bar has different rules on advertising. You know, if you want to play it safe, easiest thing to do, if you're in a jurisdiction where advertising rules are not overly onerous, just, you know, give it up. Just put your little advertising disclaimer at the bottom and call it a day. No need to fight the First Amendment fight on it. So those are just sort of the flags on whether something is, you know, on some of the ethics issues for blogging. And in addition to that, there's also, like I said, the regular kind of rules that apply to any online business. So the first is online privacy laws. You're probably thinking, you know, this is a blog. Why would privacy laws even be invoked? Or why would, like, the GDPR, which is the European privacy law, be invoked, or California's privacy statute, you know, if you're a Texas lawyer? And the reason is because you may attract people from those places to your site, and you could potentially be subject to those laws. And, you know, like I said, if your blog has a button that allows people to subscribe to a newsletter, or if it has a site, you know, where they can opt in for something or download a content, you know, you're going to have to you're going to have to make very clear, you know, why you're collecting that information, whether you're collecting the information, what purpose it's going to be used for. And those are sort of generally what these online privacy laws kind of boil down to. So if your blog has those elements of it, you could potentially, you know, you would be subject to those laws. Copyright law, of course, I mean, I don't need to tell you all about this. You probably know more. I'm sure you know more about it than me. But, you know, again, when you are posting a picture, you want to make sure that you have the rights to be able to use that picture. It's not necessarily going to be, you know, fair use if you take, you know, a photograph from somewhere that is copyrighted and stick it on your blog, which is being used for commercial purposes. So, you know, especially with things like photos, you just want to be really concerned about that. Also, there's some lawyers who, you know, get there's a lot of newsletter content that is very heavily protected and very subject to very heavy copyrights. And then lawyers may take like a big 5-paragraph chunk of it and post it on their blog. That's not smart. It's going to be copyright issues there too. So you just want to be cognizant of, you know, using others' material online when you don't have the rights to do it. And the last thing is FTC and affiliate disclosures. These are things that, you know, for like mom bloggers or small business bloggers, they may get a product from somebody and write a review of it. that's something that you want to disclose. It's probably not something that really applies to lawyers. I mean, I suppose a lawyer could get free access to, to a trademark law platform, or to, get like a treatise in the mail or a book to review that they haven't paid for. You may want to make a disclosure there that it was given to you, that this book or this thing you're reviewing is given to you for free, but it probably is not something that is likely to come up that frequently. So those are, again, just some of the legal issues that could apply when you're doing the blog. So I see we have some questions here. I do have some more time for questions now. Okay, we've got somebody here who's got a pretty good Instagram following. I 15,000 Instagram followers. I think that's great. And yeah, so you can, take the post information from blogs and put it there. The other thing is, with blogs, in addition to the option of setting one up on WordPress or setting it up on your site, again, you can set up sort of a quasi blog, like through LinkedIn publishing, and sort of publish posts through LinkedIn. Medium is another place where you can post content or kind of do a blog like on the Medium platform. So there's just, even for something like blogging, there's so many more options. But does anybody else have any other questions here? Yes, the privacy policy. That's very true. So yeah, and there are you can, I mean, if you're familiar with privacy policy, you can come up with privacy policy. There are actually generators that will generate free privacy policies, which I've shown to privacy attorneys. I mean, for a purpose like this, it may be something that's workable. I don't think you necessarily need to hire somebody to write a privacy policy. I often look at other websites of privacy lawyers and see what their privacy policy says. But yeah, that is very good advice, is to have the privacy policy in your footer. And even, sometimes you can even have like terms of service. The one thing that you do want to keep in mind with blogs also, yes, content repurposing, very important. The one thing you do want to keep in mind with blogs, this is another pet peeve, is, as we know, the law, wheels of justice change, or the law changes very slowly. Sometimes you'll write a post about a case and the post becomes outdated. You want to try to maybe, like, every year or so, either do an audit of your blog, or it's a perfect assignment for like a summer associate or for a law student to just do a blog audit and see if there are any cases that have been overruled. You don't necessarily, I mean, it gives you new content. I mean, if you go back and update the post, but it also is something that you don't want people to come to your site and rely on a case that's been overruled. And you can put, you can certainly have disclaimers on your blog and say that, it's that, it's not always updated, or that you should, not rely on everything for legal advice, but you want to try to keep that current. I also think it's important to date posts. A lot of people don't date their blog posts, which they do it to sort of make the content look more relevant. But I think that dating posts is really important to give people an idea of context, especially for legal posts. How long should a blog post be, especially if repurposed on LinkedIn? That's an interesting question. I think that on LinkedIn, people, because this is a social media platform, people are scrolling through. I think the shorter post is better. I think, if you're putting a post out in the wild, and you want to try to get SEO or get it higher up, the longer post matters. I think for LinkedIn, I mean, you could do like a 500 word post or 300 words. I mean, if the thing is if it's any shorter than 300 or 400 words, then you kind of wonder, like, well, why did they make me click to the separate article? You could have just done it like as a comment. So I kind of think that because there are, places where you can put, where things can be in shorter form, that if you're going to take advantage of like an article or something, you'd want it to be a little bit longer, but not too long on LinkedIn, because again, you think of how people are using that medium. They're scrolling through, they're looking at a lot of information at once. So do we have any other questions?
I think we're actually about out of time.
Okay.
But thank you so very much for this presentation, Carolyn.
Sure.
I think we all really appreciated that. Up next, we have a cooking class. It's going to be a really long one too. Start some water boiling. Apparently, if you're coming to make gnocchi and tiramisu. I think there are some other preparation instructions. You have about 10 minutes before that gnocchi class. Gnocchi and tiramisu, let me not forget. Gnocchi is fine, but come on, tiramisu. We gotta go learn how to make tiramisu. So make sure to join us. That cooking class is sponsored by Legalese Bookkeeping. So if you love it, go pay them a visit at their booth to tell them thank you. Otherwise, I will see you in gnocchi cooking class in about 9 minutes. Thank you so very much for joining us. And thank you, Carolyn, for this wonderful presentation. Super, super helpful. So now we're going to all have perfect blogs. And when you have your perfect blog, if you have some articles on it, send it to me. I'd love to see them. So thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. It's nice talking to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.